Well, that was the most fun I've had watching a Penguins game all season. I am Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube platform. The Penguins beat the Rangers 3-2 at Madison Square Garden. You can see the city behind me. I've certainly had a few good days, some great food, even a little bit of sleep. I feel like a human being again. I've just knocked out some pizza on the way home from the arena as well. We're doing this in the hotel room, as you can see. The Penguins played a gritty, hard-nosed, determined, needful game against the Rangers. There wasn't a loose puck they didn't contest. There wasn't a moment when they weren't aggressive or they weren't playing to their full capacity and potential. There wasn't a lull in the game when they looked terrible. There wasn't a lack of effort at any point in the 60 minutes. The Penguins without Sidney Crosby, the Penguins without Evgeny Malkin, you think, okay, they might put up a fight. They're going to get whitewashed. They're just going to get knocked out of the arena. And the first period sort of looked exactly like how you and I would have predicted it would go. The Penguins had some chances. Shot it wide, good saves, bad luck. And a Penguins turnover makes it 1-0. Erik Karlsson's up pass. Maybe it deflected off Lafreniere. Otherwise, just a terrible pass by Karlsson right to Trocheck in the slot. He rips it past Nedeljkovic, 1-0. And you're like, yeah, that tracks. Penguins mistake. Missed chances. No Crosby, no Malkin. Yeah, this will be like a 3-0, 4-1 game. Second period, different story. The Penguins kept up the pressure. They didn't get discouraged. That, I think, was a big factor. They didn't get discouraged. They didn't get down on themselves or frustrated. Scoring early in the period certainly helped. Noel Acciari wins a puck battle on the wall. That's kind of a running theme for Friday night, winning those battles on the wall. The Penguins really were aggressive and desperate on the walls. The puck pressure was next level Friday. Acciari wins the battle on the right wing wall, just kind of slides it over to a rushing Lizotte. He gives it the Mark Recchi wrist shot, kind of off the wrong foot. Maybe surprised Shesterkin just a little bit. Gets the far post. It's 1-1. Now everybody picks up. Penguins top line makes a mistake. We should talk about the top line, too, because there's just so many of these little storylines. No Crosby. That means Rickard Rakell plays center for the first time in about a decade, since early in his career with the Anaheim Ducks. Did very well. We should talk about that after I get through the game here. They make a mistake. I think it was Beauvillier. I'm not positive. It might have been Rust. Doesn't cover Adam Fox at the blue line. They two people took one Rangers player down low, leaves Fox alone at the top of the blue line there. He steps into the circle, blasts it past Nedeljkovic. It's 2-1. You're like, oh, okay. It was a good fight while it lasted, but a few minutes later, the Penguins answer back. Rakell gets one. And then a power play. Tomasino. I don't think half the arena realized Tomasino scored the power play goal. It was like, wait, did he score? Because he slammed. He put every pound of his 175 pounds, or maybe 180. He put it all behind that shot, and it just hits the back and caroms out. Didn't even hit the post. It didn't even hit that post at the back. It just hit the white, the padding, and kicked out. He got so much of it. And arms go up. Penguins get the 3-2 lead. Penguins hold on for a 3-2 lead. Penguins actually took 0 shots in the third period. And kind of akin to how proud Mike Sullivan was after the game. Listen, I'll tell you a little bit of inside baseball here. We did the Mike Sullivan post-game media scrum. Basically, there were only a few of us because the only media outlets on the road are Pittsburgh Hockey Now, DK Pittsburgh Sports. Otherwise, it was the Penguins TV and the Penguins in-house media. And, so like the four of us are there. There was NHL.com joined the fray too. To our right, 5 feet away in the hallway, Madison Square Garden, where we're doing this, are all of the dads. It was the first night of the dads trip. So everyone's dad is kind of standing there watching this go down. And Sullivan was just, man, he was barrel-chested, proud of his group. And the dads were kind of all giddy too. They had just watched probably one of the best games of the season, and not a lot to criticize, quite frankly. So this all goes down, and Sullivan's quote of the night, as reported by Alex Nedeljkovic to the guys and to the dads, was, "Beer tastes good. Beer tastes better after a win." That was, I think, the dad's message as well. So Sullivan gets through his post game, but I think if you watch it on our YouTube channel, the emotion that the feelings that he was emoting visibly were the story, not so much on the words. Let's get to some of the performances really that you should note that really could carry forward. This is one of those games when guys get an opportunity and they seize it. This begins to has the potential to start to lay the groundwork for what comes next. Begins to build patterns and opportunities and more opportunities. The first person who had, I think, just the biggest elevation in their game was Philip Tomasino. He played exactly as the coaches have been imploring him to play. He was scratched. Was that earlier this week, last week? He kind of had some press box nachos to think about it. Friday night at Madison Square Garden, he was physical. He was on the wall, battling for pucks. He's got the offensive instincts and skills. He can move the puck well. But then he'd fought to the net. That third line with Kevin Hayes, Tomasino, and Emil Bemstrom. We need to talk about him too. Emil Bemstrom had a game. So with Tomasino playing his best game, hard on the puck, fighting to the net, really creating some turnovers and some opportunity, so did Bemstrom. Bemstrom last year looked like a floater. And I mean that as a hockey player, not what else might be a floater. Bemstrom got between the dots, used his body to protect pucks, jumped on loose pucks, created a few. He looked like he belonged. He looked like he was fighting for a roster spot. That was the kind of game that gets you a whole lot more opportunity and gets you put back in the lineup against Philadelphia on Saturday. I would almost guarantee Bemstrom gets another shot Saturday. He played that well. You drop Kevin Hayes into that line, and they had a 7-to-1 shot attempt ratio against their New York opponents. They allowed one shot attempt at 5-on-5. They outchanced the Rangers 3-to-1. They had 2 high-danger scoring chances. They allowed none. That's a heck of a night for the third line. The other player or players who I think really elevated their game on the blue line, P.O. Joseph. It was a few years ago now. Was it back in 22 that he and I can't remember who the right side defenseman was that night. It might have been John Marino. When P.O. had to play like 26 minutes and Marino had to play 30 minutes because everybody else was injured or sick, and they just had the two of them had a game and a half. Well, Joseph was that good again Friday. You saw it in the first period. He had just a little spark, not just some good legs, but he had a spark about him. Weaves through 2 defenders, rips a shot on Shesterkin early in the first period. You're like, good Lord, Bobby Orr. Now, he just missed the net. He's going for the top corner, but it it kind of accelerated. It boosted his confidence. There was an odd man rush that P.O. Joseph raced back and broke up, kind of like he was chasing mites. Mite hockey, really. You race back and break up a 3-on-2. That's having a night. And Joseph really, I thought, was beast mode, next level, great game by him. I don't know if you really noticed as well, Vincent Desharnais and Ryan Graves. I know Graves had the great scoring chance in the second period, which he kind of butchered. Puck hops off his stick with a wide open net. He gets it back and still can't finish it. Forgive me, I need a little bit of... But I don't know if you could see just from the angle on television or not, how much they blanketed the defensive zone. With those, they've got wingspans and long sticks, and they took away passing lanes and opportunities, and they kept the net clear. They really were very good as well. As the Penguins had 0 shots in the third period, they had to be good defensively. But for the most part, they really were. They allowed 10 shots, predominantly from the perimeter. And don't forget, New York had 4 minutes of power play time in the final 5:38. The call on P.O., okay. The call on Michael Bunting, he was laughing. Mike Sullivan was so incredulous, he didn't know what to say. Adam Fox kind of, I don't want to say took a dive, but I'm hard pressed to say what Michael Bunting did to trip or to hold or whatever they called on Bunting. So all's well that ends well for the Penguins as they killed that penalty off as well. Think about that though, 4 minutes of power play time in crunch time, and the Penguins allowed only 10 shots total in the third period. Mike Sullivan was like, yeah, we were encouraging the guys to play more on top of the game with the puck, be in the offensive zone, but we were fighting human nature, he said. In other words, the Penguins didn't want to lose it. So the group that they had was far more comfortable defending than they were attacking, and they went with it. But it really was. And Alex Nedeljkovic was pretty good as well. That's his, 8th start since the team waived Tristan Jarry. Stops 25 of 27. He had a .936 save percentage since the team waived Jarry, his last 7 games before the game. So it'll stay just about the same. But he's been tremendous. And I think the entire team just sort of, there was a grittiness. There was a fun to watching that game. Don't get me wrong. If they had to play 10 games or have to play 10 games without Crosby and Malkin, they're not going to win a whole lot of games like they did Friday. They'll win a few. But there was still, for me anyway, there was a bit of joy in just watching the guys compete with reckless abandon. They might have lost that game. They might have won that game, but they were going to leave everything on the ice. I can appreciate that. That was enjoyable for me to write about and talk about as well. I guess plugger knows pluggers. I'm proud to be a plugger myself. So that is it from New York. 3 days of pizza, my first Broadway show, a great steak over on 29th and 6th called Skirt Steak. That's the restaurant and all they serve. And a lot of you, I appreciated a lot of you saying hi on the streets, and can't believe how many Penguins fans are here. But hey, all of you. So enjoy. We'll talk again from Philadelphia Saturday night, and I'll drive back Sunday morning. We've got a live show on WPXI, the live final word after the Super Bowl. hey, somebody might actually be watching at 1 in the morning. All right, from New York City, I'm Dan Kingerski on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel.